Picture this. You sit down at your doctor's office and get your blood work back. The number next to blood sugar is higher than it used to be. Not diabetic yet, but the doctor says the words pre-diabetes or watch your diet, and hands you a pamphlet that basically tells you to eat less sugar and exercise more. And that's it. That's the advice. And you leave that office wondering, okay, but what exactly do I eat? Which foods actually bring that number down? And which ones are quietly making it worse even when they look healthy? And today we are answering that question completely. No vague advice, no complicated meal plans, just the specific foods, the science behind why they work, how much to eat, and the one thing almost nobody talks about, which is the order you eat your food in, which turns out to matter more than most people realize. So stay with me through this whole video, because the last strategy we cover is something most people have never heard, and it could change how every single meal affects your blood sugar from today forward. Before we get into the foods, you need to understand what's actually happening in your body when blood sugar rises, because once you see the mechanism, the food choices make instant sense. And here's how it works. Every time you eat carbohydrates, bread, rice, fruit, pasta, anything, your digestive system breaks them down into glucose. That glucose enters your bloodstream, and your blood sugar rises. Your pancreas senses the rise and releases insulin, a hormone whose job is to act like a key unlocking your cells, so glucose can move out of the blood and into the cells where it gets used for energy. Blood sugar comes back down. System works perfectly. But here's where it breaks. When you eat too many refined carbohydrates and added sugars repeatedly over years, your cells start ignoring insulin's signal. They become resistant to it. The pancreas responds by pumping out more and more insulin, trying to get the message through. Blood sugar stays elevated longer after each meal. The pancreas exhausts itself, and eventually the system fails to keep up. And that's type 2 diabetes. But long before the formal diagnosis, during what's called pre-diabetes, damage is already happening to blood vessels, kidneys, nerves, and eyes. And maintaining healthy blood sugar levels is vital, because too much sugar in the bloodstream is a dangerous condition affecting millions of Americans every single year. So here's the good news. Food is one of the most powerful levers you have. Foods high in fiber will digest far slower, and therefore lead to a gentle rise in blood sugar, followed by a gentle fall, which is much better than a spike and crash. And eating protein in combination with healthy carbohydrates will further slow the breakdown of carbs into sugar. And that's the framework. Everything we cover today works through one of those two mechanisms: slowing glucose absorption, or improving how efficiently your cells respond to insulin. So let's get into the foods. The first and most important category is leafy green vegetables. And if there is one single category of food that consistently shows up across every major dietary guideline for blood sugar management, it is this one. Spinach, kale, romaine, Swiss chard, collard greens, arugula. This entire family of foods does something remarkable for blood sugar, and most people are not eating nearly enough of them. And here's why they work. Leafy greens are high in fiber, low in calories, and extraordinarily nutrient-rich. And that fiber is critical because it slows the absorption of any glucose entering your system and prevents the sharp spikes that damage blood vessels over time. But fiber isn't the whole story here, because a systematic review of observational studies and clinical trials found that higher intake of leafy greens was associated with improved glycemic control and reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. And researchers believe the magnesium content in dark leafy greens plays a specific role, since magnesium is directly involved in insulin signaling at the cellular level. And many people with elevated blood sugar are running low on it without knowing it. And the most practical tip here is to fill at least half your plate with vegetables, and eat them early in the meal before your rice or bread or pasta, because this physically slows the stomach's emptying rate and flattens the blood sugar curve from that entire meal. And the target is 2 to 3 cups of leafy greens every single day, whether that's raw or blended into a smoothie. The form doesn't matter much, but the consistency absolutely does. Moving on to the second food, which is beans and legumes. And if leafy greens are the most underused blood sugar food, then beans and legumes are the most underestimated. Black beans, chickpeas, lentils, kidney beans, edamame. These are some of the most powerful blood sugar regulators available at any grocery store at almost no cost. And the reason comes down to their unique structure, because beans contain what's called resistant starch, a type of carbohydrate that your digestive enzymes cannot break down quickly. It passes through the stomach and small intestines slowly, and reaches the large intestine, where gut bacteria ferment it. And the result is a minimal rise in blood sugar compared to almost any other carbohydrate-containing food you could eat. And there's also a remarkable second meal effect with legumes that researchers have documented, where eating beans at lunch actually reduces the blood sugar spike from dinner. that same evening, and the fermentation products from beans slow glucose absorption in a way that extends several hours beyond the meal itself. So 1 cup of cooked lentils or black beans 3 to 4 times per week is a very reasonable starting point. Add them to soups, mix them into salads, use them as a side dish instead of white rice, or blend chickpeas into a simple homemade hummus. And they are filling, inexpensive, and one of the most evidence-backed foods for long-term blood sugar control on this entire list. The third food is berries, and most people trying to manage blood sugar are told to limit fruit, which is partially fair advice, because some fruits, particularly tropical ones like mango and pineapple, are high in natural sugar and can cause meaningful blood sugar spikes. But berries are in a completely different category. All fruits contain natural sugar, but berries have the lowest amount, and they also contain more fiber than most other fruits, along with a wide range of healthy nutrients. And a cup of raspberries, for example, contains about 8 grams of fiber, which is more fiber than 2 slices of whole wheat bread, with significantly less impact on blood sugar. And beyond the fiber, berries are extraordinarily rich in a class of plant compounds called anthocyanins, which are the pigments that give them their deep red, purple, and blue colors. And these compounds have been shown in multiple studies to improve insulin sensitivity, meaning cells become more responsive to insulin signal and glucose moves out of the blood more efficiently after meals. And the practical approach here is 1 cup of mixed berries daily, where frozen works just as well as fresh, and is often more affordable since berries are frozen at peak ripeness. Add them to plain Greek yogurt, blend them into a smoothie with spinach and protein powder, or eat them as a standalone snack between meals, and you are doing your blood sugar a genuine favor every single day. The fourth food is nuts and seeds. And nuts are frequently avoided by people managing blood sugar because they are high in calories, but this is one of the most common and costly misunderstandings in blood sugar nutrition because all nuts are high in protein and healthy fats slow your digestive system and the rush of sugar from your gut to your bloodstream. And almonds, walnuts, pecans, and cashews all fall into this category. And when eaten before or alongside a carbohydrate-containing meal, they act as a natural brake on blood sugar absorption. And walnuts specifically have been studied for their alpha-linolenic acid content, which is an omega-3 fatty acid that supports the integrity of cell membranes and may improve insulin signaling. And almonds are particularly rich in magnesium, connecting back to the same mechanism we already discussed with leafy greens. And seeds including chia, flax, pumpkin, sunflower, and sesame are another excellent option, especially for people with nut allergies. And chia seeds are particularly interesting because a single ounce contains 11 grams of fiber, and they form a gel-like substance when mixed with liquid that physically slows glucose absorption in the digestive tract. And a practical daily habit is a small handful of roughly 1 ounce, or about 23 almonds as an afternoon snack, or adding a tablespoon of chia or flax seeds to your morning oats or yogurt. And these small, consistent additions reliably reduce post-meal blood sugar peaks when repeated over time. The fifth food is fatty fish. Salmon, mackerel, sardines, trout, and herring are not foods most people associate with blood sugar management, but they absolutely belong on this list. And here's why. Fatty fish contain virtually no carbohydrates, so they don't raise blood sugar at all. But their benefit goes much further than simply being a low-carb protein, because the omega-3 fatty acids in fatty fish, specifically EPA and DHA, directly combat the chronic inflammation that drives insulin resistance. And when inflammation is high, cells become increasingly resistant to insulin signal, and omega-3 fatty acids are among the most powerful anti-inflammatory compounds found in any food. And there is also strong evidence that protein itself, independently of fiber and fat, helps regulate blood sugar after meals, because protein triggers the release of hormones that slow gastric emptying and signal fullness, which naturally limits carbohydrate intake at that meal. And the next one. And the target is 2 to 3 servings of fatty fish per week, where a serving is roughly 3 to 4 ounces, about the size of a deck of cards, and baked or pan-seared in olive oil, with lemon and herbs, is simple, quick, and as nutritionally effective as anything more complicated you could do. The sixth food is eggs. And eggs were unfairly demonized for decades over cholesterol concerns, but the science has moved on significantly, and eggs deserve a clear place in any blood sugar management approach. An egg contains about 6 grams of high-quality protein, healthy fat, 0 carbohydrates, and a range of nutrients including choline and lutein. And that combination of protein plus fat with no carbs makes eggs one of the cleanest blood sugar neutral foods that exists. But what makes them particularly useful is their effect at breakfast, because starting the day with a high-protein, low-carbohydrate meal sets the glycemic tone for the entire morning, and people who eat eggs for breakfast consistently show lower blood sugar levels 2 hours later compared to people who eat the same number of calories from a carbohydrate-heavy breakfast like toast or cereal. So 2 eggs in the morning, whether scrambled, poached, or as an omelet with leafy greens, is a straightforward way to begin every day with your blood sugar already in a stable position, before you've even thought about the rest of your meals. The 7th food is avocado. And avocado is one of the few fruits that contains virtually no sugar and almost no starch because it is primarily fat, specifically monounsaturated fat, along with fiber and potassium. And that combination of healthy fat and fiber makes avocado an extremely effective addition to any meal that contains carbohydrates. And adding half an avocado to a meal with rice or bread consistently reduces the post-meal blood sugar spike compared to eating that same meal without it, because the fat slows gastric emptying, and the fiber adds to that effect. And the result is a slower, flatter glucose curve from that entire meal. And avocados are beneficial for blood sugar management specifically because of their fiber, vitamin, and plant compound composition. And half an avocado per day is a practical and affordable starting point. Add it to eggs in the morning, slice it into a salad at lunch, or mash it with lemon juice and a pinch of salt as a spread in place of butter or mayonnaise. And every one of those swaps works in your favor without exception. The 8th food isn't about adding something new. It's about swapping one version of a food you already eat for a dramatically better version. And that's whole grains over refined grains. Because refined grains, including white bread, white rice, white pasta, and most commercial breakfast cereals, have had their fiber and bran stripped away during processing. And what's left is essentially pure starch that converts to glucose almost immediately after you eat it. And starch turns into sugar about 15 minutes after you eat it, and it can really rush into the bloodstream very quickly. But whole grains are structurally different because fiber acts like an outer shell covering these carbs, and that shell has to be broken down first. So there is a delay in the flow of sugars into the bloodstream, and whole grains such as whole wheat bread and pasta, brown rice, oats, and quinoa are an excellent source of that fiber. And the practical swap is simple: brown rice instead of white, rice, whole grain bread instead of white bread, rolled oats instead of instant oats or sugary cereal. And these single substitutions made consistently across every meal produce meaningful reductions in average blood sugar over weeks and months. Though it's worth noting that whole grains are still carbs, so they can still cause spikes when portions are too large, which is why portion size still matters even when the grain is whole. The 9th food is plain Greek yogurt and other probiotic foods. And the connection between gut health and blood sugar is one of the most exciting areas of current nutrition research, because it comes down to the trillions of bacteria living in your digestive system. When the gut microbiome is diverse and healthy, it produces compounds that improve insulin sensitivity and regulate how quickly glucose enters the bloodstream. And when it's dominated by harmful bacteria due to a diet of processed foods and added sugars, the opposite happens. And research has found that regularly consuming probiotics may reduce both fasting blood sugar and A1C levels, especially in people with type 2 diabetes, and may also improve glucose metabolism by a meaningful degree. And plain unsweetened Greek yogurt is one of the most practical daily sources of probiotics available, and it also contains significantly more protein than regular yogurt usually, 15 to 17 grams per serving, which adds blood sugar stabilizing effect of protein on top of the probiotic benefit. And other excellent options include kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, and miso. And the crucial word here is plain, because flavored yogurts, even ones marketed as healthy, are often loaded with added sugar that more than cancels out any blood sugar benefit. So read labels carefully, and if sugar appears in the first 3 ingredients, put it back on the shelf.